So you wish to call upon a couple of companions to help you deal with Sanctuary's Lilith problem, then this is the build for you. Hello everyone, my name is Rusty Pie Lover, ginger streamer, professional hyper screamer, entertainer extraordinaire, and welcome to the Werewolf Summoner Build for Diablo 4's Druid. Now in this video, I've taken a little bit of a tweak to being a werewolf and a summoner hybrid. I know a couple of the requests were for a summoner pure build, but that seems to be almost impossible in Diablo 4. I will still tweak it, but as per usual, link in the description and in the pinned comments to the Diablo 4 builder where you see how I skill these particular characters of Diablo 4. I've gone for a werewolf summoner hybrid, purely focused on both summoning and being a werewolf primarily. Without any further ado, let's jump right into it. So as usual, our skills are broken down into basic, spirit, defensive, companion, wrath, ultimate, and capstone. Our basic skills are going to be claw, generate spirit 9, lucky hit chance 50%, shapeshift into a werewolf, and claw at an enemy for 21% damage. And our upgrades: enhanced claw, claw's attack speed is increased by plus 10%. Wild claw, claw has an additional plus 10% critical strike chance and deals times 15% increased critical strike damage. Fierce claw, claw poisons enemies for 10.5% damage over 3 seconds. So as you can see, I have gone for a pure, from the start, werewolf build where we will be a werewolf, and you can quite possibly customize this into a poison-based character. But since we're not going to be focusing on pure poison, but rather than a werewolf being a summoner, we're going to skip a couple of these upgrades, but your primary skill, basic skill, is going to be claw, which allows you to become a werewolf and howl into the night. Under our spirit tree, we are going to go with shred. Spirit cost 35, lucky hit chance 20%, shapeshift into a werewolf and perform a 3 combo attack. First attack, dash towards the target and deal a percentage of damage. Second attack, deal percentage damage. Third attack, perform a larger finishing move, dealing a percentage of damage. And our upgrade options: enhanced shred. Shred gains a percentage attack speed and heals for 2% of your maximum life if an enemy is struck. Raging shred. Shred's third combo attack is larger and applies a potent poison to enemies hit, dealing an additional percentage damage over a period of seconds. And primal shred. Shred's second combo attack also performs a dash. In addition, Shred's critical strike chance is increased by plus percentage for first 2 combo attacks. Also under the spirit tree, we are going to go with predatory instinct. Critical strike chance against close enemies is increased by 3%. Digitigrade gait. While in werewolf form, your movement speed is increased by 4%. This bonus persists for 3 seconds after leaving werewolf form. So under our spirit tree, you can see we're really going to double down on going into the werewolf form. Being a werewolf, we are going to focus on getting those attacks in to generate the spirit and be able to perform quite a bit of damage in our werewolf form. Also gaining quite a bit of movement speed, and as I said earlier, we could go into a poison damage werewolf, but again, since we're focusing on our companions, we're going to give those particular skills a skip. And you can see there's not much else you can do besides shred in the spirit tree unless you want to double down on being a werebear, which I will cover in a different video. But for now, we're going to stick with werewolf and then move on to our defensive skills, which we are going to skill Blood Howl. Cooldown 15 seconds, shapeshift into a werewolf and howl furiously, restoring 20% life. And under our upgrades, we've got enhanced Blood Howl. Kills reduce the cooldown of Blood Howl by 1 second. Innate Blood Howl. Blood Howl also generates 20 spirit. And preserving Blood Howl also increases your attack speed by 15% for 4 seconds. So your defensive is there to ensure that you are to remain on the battlefield, gaining life and generating spirit, while increasing your attack speed, making sure that our claw and our shred is exactly what we need to continue staying in wolf form and really getting the absolute maximum damage. However, I believe the next tree is really what you're looking for, so if you made it this far in the video, this is going to be what you're going to be looking for. Under our companion trees, we are going to go with everything here. If possible, we are going to go with ravens, cooldown 25 seconds, lucky hit chance 33%, active. The target area is swarmed with ravens, dealing 89.25% damage over 6 seconds. And our raven upgrades are enhanced ravens, passive. Ravens fly above you and periodically attack your enemies for 13.85% damage for every 5 seconds. Brutal ravens. 2 additional ravens appear when they periodically attack enemies. And ferocious ravens. Enemies inside the swarm of ravens, when it is activated, become vulnerable for 3 seconds. We are also going to go with wolves. Cooldown 14 seconds, lucky hit chance 50%, passive. Summon 2 wolf companions that bite enemies for 8.19% damage. Active. Direct wolves to focus an enemy, leaping to them and striking them for 36.75% damage. Our wolf upgrades are enhanced wolves. Wolves deal times 20% increased damage to immobilized, stunned, slowed, or poisoned enemies. Ferocious wolves. You deal times 10% increased damage to your wolves' focused target. And brutal wolves, your wolves' first attack against a focused enemy makes them vulnerable for 2 seconds. Also under that, we are going to go with Vine Creeper. Cooldown 20 seconds, lucky hit chance 40%, passive. A Vine Creeper periodically emerges from the ground every 7 seconds and poisons an enemy in the area for 37.8% damage over 6 seconds. Active. Vines strangle all surrounding enemies, immobilizing them for 2 seconds and poisoning them for 31.5% damage over 2 seconds. And our upgrades for our companions: enhanced Vine Creeper. Vine Creeper's immobilized duration is increased by 1 second. Brutal Vine Creeper. Your chance to critically strike is increased by plus 20% against enemies strangled by Vine Creeper. And Ferocious Vine Creeper. Vine Creeper's active poison duration is increased by 3 seconds. To further upgrade our companions, we are going to go with Call of the Wild. You deal times 8% increased critical strike damage against your wolves' focused target. Ravens attack deal times 8% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Vine Creeper's poison duration is increased by 8%. As we said, we are focusing on being a werewolf. However, the main point of this build is to be a summoner. So the werewolf is really to make sure you generate enough spirit to make sure that all of your summons work in conjunction. And as you can see, with the ravens being able to make enemies vulnerable, the vine creepers being able to make sure that enemies are immobilized while being strangled and dealing poison damage, also allows your wolves to do more damage. And this is really where I feel the summoner druid has gotten a major buff, because each and every single summon helps this vicious cycle and circle of enabling with all of these particular crowd control effects such as poison, immobilization, and vulnerability. Really allows your summons to do an insane amount of damage while you are helping them, also buffing your wolves as well as your other companions. Under our Wrath tree, we are going to go with Rabies. Cooldown 12 seconds, lucky hit chance 50%. Shapeshift into a werewolf and perform an infectious bite on the target, dealing 29.4% damage and an additional 55.65% damage over 6 seconds. Infected enemies spread rabies to other surrounding targets. And to further upgrade Rabies, enhance Rabies. Once Rabies infects 4 targets, it deals times 30% increased poison damage against all targets. Savage Rabies. The initial bite of Rabies deals times 100% increased damage against enemies who are immobilized or stunned. Natural Rabies. The initial bite of Rabies heals you for 10% of your maximum life. To further upgrade our Wrath tree, we are going to go with Toxic Claws. Critical Strike with Werewolf skills deal 8% of their base damage as poison damage over 4 seconds. And Neurotoxin, poison enemies are slowed by 8%. So as you can see, again, focusing on the werewolf, the poison, and the companions, while we're trying to make sure that this is a pure summoner build, you're going to want to try and skill into that poison tree as well to further allow your companions to do more damage to enemies that are poisoned. And that is why we are going to go with the rabies build in this as well. As you can see, it is a hybrid build of werewolf poison plus summons. Now you can purely go with summons, but as you can see with the tree that is being built here, we are trying to make sure that we're getting as much power on our druid as we are with our companions. So it might look like a lot of a poison damage, and you can go and build this precisely how you want to. That is the beauty of this build. I am focusing with the poison damage to further upgrade the companions to make sure that we've got those crowd control effects and being able to do an obscene amount of damage to all of these enemies with the poison damage and our companions doing their thing. You can really see that this is going to be one of the more powerful builds. And to round it off, we are going to go on our ultimate, which is Lacerate. Cooldown 50 seconds, lucky hit chance 15%, shapeshift into a werewolf, become immune and quickly dash 10 times between enemies in an area, dealing up to 420% damage. And to upgrade Lacerate, we are going to go with Prime Lacerate. Each time Lacerate deals a critical strike, heal for 3% of your maximum life. And Supreme Lacerate, Lacerate's final strike deals times 200% increased damage. And to further upgrade our ultimate, we are going to go with Quick Shift. When a shape-shifting skill transforms you into a different form, it deals times 5% increased damage. Natural Fortitude, shape-shifting fortifies you for 0.56% base life. And Heightened Senses, upon shape-shifting into a werewolf or werebear, gain 4% damage reduction against elites for 3 seconds. This is where the werewolf itself rounds off, making sure you've got immunity, dashing through enemies, and really working in conjunction with your companions. And as I said, you can focus more on the summon tree and just add a few small things to yourself, but really your ultimate is going to help you deal a bunch of damage, and then your companions finish it off, also enabling you to do a lot of damage with all those crowd control effects. Then late game Capstone, we are going to go with Lupine Ferocity. Every 6th werewolf skill hit critically strikes and deals times 60% increased damage. Druids have a class-specific mechanic called Spirit Boons. Now, while I don't know precisely what Spirit Boons do, I'm assuming these are skill trees that further buff your builds as you go. Now, we don't know exactly how they work up until when the beta launches, which we will explore once the beta launches. Obviously, you can find where I'm going to be doing that. But I have picked a couple of Spirit Boons for you just for this particular build. So, your first boon will be Wolf. Specialization in this spirit type will allow you to allocate 2 boons instead of only 1. The next one, we are going to go with Pack Leader, Lucky Hit. Critical strikes have up to a 20% chance to reset a cooldown of your companion skills. Then we will go with Gift of the Stag, gain plus 10 maximum spirit. Masochist. Critical strikes with shape-shifting skills heal you for 3% of your maximum life. And finally, Avian Wrath, plus 30% critical strike damage. And to further enhance this build under the Codex of Power, which is again split up into defensive, offensive, resource, utility, and mobility. Under our defensive Codex of Power, we are going to go with Stalking Beast Aspect. Gain stealth for 2 seconds when killing enemies with Shred. Breaking stealth with an attack grants Ambush, which guarantees critical strikes for 1 second. Vigorous Aspect. Gain 10% damage reduction while shapeshifted into a werewolf. And Skinwalker's Aspect. When you use a shapeshifting skill that changes your form, gain a percentage of life. If you are at full life, gain the same amount as Fortify. Under offensive, we are going to go with Edgemaster's Aspect. Skills deal up to times 24% increased damage based on available resource when cast, receiving the full benefit while at full resource. Aspect of the Expectant. Enemies hit with basic skills increases the damage of your next core skill by times 5% up to times 50%. Night Howler's Aspect. Blood Howl increases critical strike chance by 5%. In addition, Blood Howl also affects nearby companions and players for 3 seconds. And Shepherd's Aspect. Core skills deal an additional 6% damage for each active companion. Then under our resource, we are going to go with Aspect of the Unsatiated. After killing an enemy with Shred, your next werewolf skill generates times 20% more spirit and deals times 20% increased damage. Under your utility, we are going to go with Aspect of Shared Misery, Lucky Hit. When you hit a crowd-controlled enemy, there is up to a 30% chance for that crowd-control effect to spread to another unaffected enemy. And Mobility, we are going to go with Wind Striker Aspect. Critical Strike grants 8% movement speed for 1 second. The duration can be extended. And that right there will cover your Werewolf Summoner hybrid for the Druid. Now, I wanted to try and go for a pure Summoner build, but as you can see, it is actually quite difficult to make something purely summons that is going to benefit you in the late game. And that is why I went with the Werewolf Poison Summoner hybrid, because this build is not only going to help you deal with mass amounts of enemies with all of that attrition damage and damage over time, as well as crowd control effects, but potentially for late game and PvP, not only will your summons be buffed by everything you do, but you also will stand a chance to make sure that you stay alive. And with some of your aspects and your boons giving you lifesteal as well as some damage reduction, you are guaranteed to not only stay in the fight, but also deal quite a bit of damage to enemy players or the enemies in Sanctuary. And that's why I went with this build. But again, let me know what you think. What are you going to change in this build? Are you going to stick to a pure summoner, try and make it work, or are you going to give a little bit of poison damage, give a little bit of werewolf shape-shifting? What is your build going to be? As I said, link in the description and down below to the Diablo 4 builder. Let me know in the comments, what would you change? Once again, thank you so much for all the support on the Diablo 4 builder videos. I know there are a lot of people out there busy getting hyped for Diablo 4, and I'd like to know, are you hyped for Diablo 4? Is the Druid going to be the class that you are going to take into Sanctuary as your first class? Or are you going to look at some of the other classes? If you are, and you happen to be a Barbarian player, check out this video over here for the Whirlwind Barbarian build. Let me know what you think down below. And if you haven't, consider liking, subscribing for more Diablo 4 content. And until then, Sanctuary awaits.